We've been in a little bit of a content drought in DC Dark Legion over the last few weeks, and I've heard a few people talking about being bored of the game and maybe not wanting to play it anymore. But I think that maybe we should be thinking about this time in a little bit of a different way. We know that there are a lot of things coming down the pipeline for the game. We've got a lot of new characters that have already been announced and teased that are going to be coming in the next 45 to 60 days. And we've also got others that we are pretty sure are going to be coming in the next few months that are going to round out a lot of the teams that we already have and potentially even create new teams and tag synergies for the game. So I think, if you're a little bit bored of the game right now, that's fine. But if you want to continue to play it, I think you really need to take some time here and there to analyze your roster and see where maybe there are some places that you can improve. And what I would like to do is introduce a new series that we're going to be doing on the channel, and we'll probably do it at least once a month going forward, and that's going to be some roster reviews. Now, I'd love to figure out a way to start doing at least maybe a monthly stream for the channel where we can do these roster reviews live. But for right now, I have a team help section of my Discord, and I've asked some folks to throw their rosters in there and a little bit of information about their rosters. And I've decided that I'm going to try to look through as many of those as possible and just maybe kind of like make some recommendations or provide some observations on the roster and maybe what you can think about doing moving forward with what you have, especially knowing that we're going to be getting a lot more reruns in the future. This is not meant to be this is exactly how you should build your roster moving forward. It's just trying to give you some things to think about and just kind of let you know what my overall impression is of your roster so far. If you're interested in participating in this format going forward, definitely join my Discord server and you can get more details over there. All right, so let's get into a couple of these roster reviews. And the first one up is going to be from a longtime friend of the channel, Mogloth. Mogloth has a account on server 204, so same server as I am. They've been playing the game for quite a while, and they're not fully free to play, but they do buy, I think, the monthly pass every time it comes around. Now, we have Sinestro available in the bleed right now. Mogloth indicated that they were hoping to get at least one more pull of Sinestro, try to get him to one purple star, and then maybe try to save for the next rerun character. We got a couple of screenshots here that should take us through all of the champions that Mogloth has on their account, and everything should be sorted by power. So obviously we can see Sinestro and Superman are the two best champions that they have on their roster, and they're actually quite well developed for a player who is only buying the monthly pass each month and really pushing free to play. Obviously had a couple of bites at the apple on both of these characters, and I know that Mogloth is a very efficient player as well, so kudos to them for getting a few of these bleed champions to blue stars. That's really kind of the bare minimum where these champions are going to be viable. And you really want to make sure that you're trying to focus in on a couple of champions where you're just building basically one good team that will get you through most of the content in the game. And then probably a secondary team that you can pull champions from depending on what you're trying to do. So, you might have a team that you're going to be focusing on using for Meta Brawl, and then you can kind of rework that team to get you through Training Sim and ACN, and you might be working with a handful of different one-off champions for your combat cycle, and I think this account can do that. Obviously, they have all of the legendary champions at red stars. Most of them are at 4 or 5 red stars, as we'll see as we go through the champions available here. We've got Wonder Woman, who has been through the Ascension, and they have Wonder Woman at 5 purple stars, so really good champion for the account. You can see they have the Amazonian Alloy Shield, which is one of probably the better mythic legacy pieces in the game that's not one of the unique. One thing that I noticed from looking at these screenshots of the account is Mogloth is a lot like me in that they probably like to collect as many of the champions as possible. We see a lot of 5 white star bleed champions, and I would say that's probably a little bit inefficient because you're not going to be able to focus in on specific teams that you're wanting to build. Now, obviously they are saving for reruns, and that's a good thing. I think with this roster, it's a really good base to try to push, maybe 2 or 3 of these bleed champions as high as they can, so that they've got a couple of very formidable teams. Really liking the Superman at 5 blue stars along with the Crypto at 5 blue. I think that's the start of a really good hybrid team, probably with your Justice League, because you're going to have a lot of other moving parts for the Justice League team. You've got your Green Arrow and Mira that you can plug into that. Obviously, Wonder Woman. But then there are a couple of other things that I think you could probably focus on with this roster as well. I'm seeing that really nice Sinestro that you've put together there. I think probably what you'll want to do is push maybe Zatanna 1 more, pull potentially 2, but then try to dump as much as you can into Constantine, assuming that we're going to be getting the reruns on the original order that we had everything go through. If we're at Sinestro now, we should technically be getting Zatanna as the next rerun and then Constantine. If that holds true, I would say try to hold your anvils to get Constantine to a couple of purple stars if you can get them there. Looking at the second page of champions, I think great that you were able to get your Supergirl to 5 white stars. That's another champion that I would probably be looking at to try to bolster the next opportunity that you get. I would tell anyone who is going to pull for Supergirl that ideally, if you're going to pull for her once, you need to pull for her 10 times, because you really need to get her into the purple stars at a bare minimum, and then ideally into yellow or red stars. I know that's unrealistic for your run-of-the-mill non-spenders and light spenders, but I would say if you are able to, whenever her rerun comes around, she's definitely one of the ones that you want to be focusing on or saving up for, because she's just not going to be that useful at the 5 white star level. Out of the other champions on the screen, I would say I definitely don't recommend that you put any force into any of these champions, with the exception of probably your Justice League Dark champions, so Dr. Fate and Raven, and then potentially Batgirl, just because I saw that you do have a good Nightwing on the roster. So, those are probably some of the ones that I would highlight that you think about investing in. And then obviously Supergirl, if you're able to get her to higher stars, you can think about maybe starting to put some into her as well. And lastly, I see you got Superboy at 3 white stars. Now, Superboy is actually a champion that is fairly useful without needing too many stars. I definitely think you need a couple more copies of him before you can see any, true usefulness out of him. But he's a champion that if you could get a couple more copies the next time his rerun rolls around, you'll be able to use him not just with the Superman family lineup, but with really most lineups that you could think about using that are meta in the game right now. Seeing him used across the gamut. He's been used with Legion of Doom. He's been used with Nightwing comps. So, definitely a champion that I would say on the lower end of your roster is worth upgrading as well. And then, the other thing that I would comment on here is probably Lex. I noticed that you have a couple of champions for the Legion of Doom team going, but you've only got your Scarecrow at 5 white stars. It would probably be a trap to say that you should be investing in Legion of Doom right now. I'd noticed that you do not have Deathstroke unlocked on the account, so I would probably lay off of investing there. Obviously, Lex is one of the better champions in the game if you can get him to high star levels, but heavy investment there. Probably not worth investing in for a very light spender such as yourself. And I think in the same vein, you've got a three white star Green Lantern. Over time, maybe you'll get opportunities to build his stars higher, but that's probably another trap for your account. Would not recommend building Green Lantern unless you're able to get him well into the blue or purple stars. So it's probably going to be a while there. I think Mira is probably going to be your better option for those pure play Justice League type lineups. And you do have Starfire that you started working on as well. So probably another, solid option. But ultimately, I think you've got a fairly solid base for a good account over time. If you continue to focus on your Justice League and Superman family, that one's going to take a lot longer for you to develop, but you can focus on the Justice League team members first. And then you've got a pretty formidable Justice League Dark lineup if you're able to get your Constantine up higher on a rerun. And for probably a third lineup, you'll be able to run some sort of a Bat Family Teen Titans comp. You've got a decent Nightwing, and you'll be able to throw in your Batgirl. I think your Batman's pretty decent. You've got obviously Red Hood, who we're probably going to be seeing a Mythic Ascension fairly soon. So a lot of options there. And then that Sinestro that's kind of, sitting on his own out of the Legion of Doom group will actually slot in really nicely to an aggressive Justice League Dark team. So give that a try as well. Really like the lineup. Keep pushing, and I really want to see where this lineup is in a couple of months down the road. Now, our next lineup comes from a user named Soil, and they're a player who started out on 204, quit playing the game for a little while, and then showed back up on one of the high 300 servers, and they're kind of rebuilding their account from scratch. And I can see they've got a pretty good start here. I'm really liking that Superman at 1 purple star. And it looks like they're wanting to go for Superman family and Justice League Dark. So let's take a look at what we do have here from the roster. I'm assuming they don't have much past that last line there. It looks like we've got Black Canary, we've got Robin, Toothface, and Arsenal there on the bottom. Obviously, all of those are champions that you don't want to be focusing on right now. Really, out of this group that you've got going, definitely it looks like you are spending a little bit. I would say continue to maybe daily deal your Raven, and you really want to unlock your Dr. Fate and go ahead and get him up and running as well. Those champions are fairly integral to the Justice League Dark setup because it can be quite difficult to keep your Constantine alive in certain battles. And so you want to have those into the blue stars at a bare minimum whenever you're able to unlock your Justice League Dark. But I think the big question that you had for this setup is how to invest your anvils in order to be able to pull Zatanna, Constantine, Supergirl, and Superboy so that you can push both of those teams forward. And I can tell you it's going to be pretty difficult because those are ones that have traditionally come to us in rapid succession. So we know Zatanna and Constantine will go together and they're back to back. Same thing with Supergirl and Superboy. So I'm not sure how the bleed calendar is going to look for those high 300s servers right now. I know there's some adjustments that are being made, but I would say you should assume that those are going to happen in rapid succession. So what I will say is your Zatanna doesn't have to be well developed. In fact, you probably will have the opportunity to pull for Sinestro. I'm not sure your plans on going for Sinestro at all. I would recommend it. I think you are on the Scarecrow bleed right now. I would try to avoid spending any anvils on Scarecrow or Deathstroke's bleeds, and that's going to allow you to kind of build up a surplus of anvils. Again, I'll leave it to you whether you want to push for Sinestro at all, but I do think that he slots in well as a heavy damage dealer for the Justice League Dark team. If you wanted to skip Zatanna altogether or maybe just pull a couple of times for her, I would say if you characterize yourself as a light spender who's willing to spend specifically for certain champions, that I would probably shoot for maybe 3 or 4 copies of Zatanna, so maybe get her to about the 2 blue range, and then save anvils and go all in on Constantine. That's going to be incredibly important for your account, and especially for the Justice League Dark lineup. You need your Constantine as high as you're able to build him. So if that means one purple star or a couple of purple stars, that's at least a good start. That's kind of where my Constantine is currently, and I'm able to push pretty far in the game with that champion. So don't spend too much on anvils for Zatanna. Spend those anvils on Constantine. And then as far as the approach for Supergirl and Superboy, if you're really wanting to push with Supergirl, my recommendation is don't spend on any other bleeds until that one shows up. I don't know, again, how much time you're going to have after Constantine to get there, but you don't need to be spending on any reruns unless it's champions for the Superman family or for Justice League Dark. And then just save as many anvils as you can for Supergirl and try to get as many copies of her as possible. Superboy, you can afford to just get to 5 white or a few blue stars. Obviously, he does perform better in purple stars, but you can almost afford to have like one rung of stars less on Superboy than on Supergirl. Best advice I can give you for this fresh playthrough is try to be as efficient as possible. Focus in on just those couple of teams that you mentioned. I think they're two great teams to invest in for light spenders. And I'm looking forward to hearing about your account progress over the next few months as well. And our next roster is coming from a player called Bareric. They're on, I believe, server 347. Completely free to play. They went for Justice League Dark to start out with, and they're looking to build Arkham's Most Wanted next. Looking at the top champions, I would say this person did a pretty good job of trying to acquire the Justice League Dark champions. They definitely acquired them in the right star levels. So we see Zatanna at 2 blue and Constantine at 1 purple. So they definitely put more into getting their Constantine up and running. I also noticed that this person has Constantine's sigil. So really good job there. Having him at 2 purple stars probably would have made it a little bit better. Your damage output would have been a little bit higher because of that AoE that he's able to do on his first basic skill. So the next time he comes around in the reruns, I'm sure you're aware, but definitely make sure that you're pushing your Constantine higher on the rerun. You probably don't have to push Zatanna too much higher than she already is. If you want to throw a few anvils at that rerun, that's fine. But definitely make sure that you're saving up anvils already for a Constantine rerun and have a little bit of a supply sitting around for when that happens, regardless of whether you're planning on going for Arkham's Most Wanted champions as kind of your second team. I notice you've got Superman at 5 white stars, and you've also got Supergirl at 5 white stars. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do too much with a Superman family team if they're just at the 5 white star level. They might function as kind of a third team for your 3v3 setup if you don't have anything better than that. But I would advise caution against putting too many resources into that team unless you're really going to push your Supergirl higher during the current bleed. I think look like from some of the other screenshots that you sent over that you're on Supergirl and Superboy right now. But I think it might be a little bit of a trap for you to push for those champions if you're going for Arkham's Most Wanted as kind of your secondary team. I noticed that you have your Joker and Scarecrow at 5 white stars apiece. Those two champions are the most important part of building the Arkham's Most Wanted team. So you definitely want to make sure that you're pushing them as high as you can with anvils as well. So really the focus for this account needs to be as many stars as you can possibly get on your Joker, as many stars as you can possibly get on your Constantine, and then maybe work a couple of pulls for your Scarecrow, and then maybe a couple of pulls for Zatanna. Scarecrow at purple stars is an incredibly good tank. So, free to play, it's going to be difficult for me to try to recommend that you push all these champions into purple stars. You might not be able to. But if you can focus in on, I would say, Constantine, Joker, and Scarecrow, as many pulls as you can, and then maybe a pull or two for Zatanna. Those are the ones that you need to be focusing on for the next few months as we see some of these reruns come through. And I think you'll have a pretty decent account after that. Obviously, continue to put resources into your Ivy, Bane, and Two Face because those are the other three important Arkham's Most Wanted champions. Don't worry about any of the other ones. Next, we've got Baba Yaga, who or matches Malone, who looks like they're playing on server 228. So they are a global launch player, and I'm assuming they probably spend a little bit, or at least they've been very thrifty with their anvils because they've got several champions here into the purple star level. I know we had a rerun on Superman, so I guess that shouldn't surprise me too much, but they are on Starfire for their bleed. We'll just take a look at the roster here. Maybe they aren't a spender after all. I would say this looks to be a fairly efficient account. I think they skipped the Justice League Dark champions as well as the Legion of Doom and Arkham's Most Wanted champions. Not a bad strategy. You know, there's definitely something to be said for pushing the account the way they did. Obviously, they've tried to focus in on the Superman family champions and some of the Bat family as well. So, not a bad looking roster here. I think probably one of the biggest inefficiencies is Supergirl was only taken to 3 white stars. She really is not useful at white stars at all. And I think, when reruns start coming around, you really need to consider pushing Supergirl up into the purple stars if you can get her there. So you probably already want to start saving some anvils to be able to do that with. And I think you just need to continue to pump as many resources as you can into probably your Nightwing and your Superman. You can probably run some pretty formidable hybrid lineups with Superman and Krypto and some of your Justice League champions. You've got Martian Manhunter pretty high, so you could probably run him as kind of an off tank in a Justice League lineup. And then obviously Nightwing with Batman and Batgirl. I think you have a Starfire, but not at high enough levels that she would be a good enough healer for that team. Definitely another champion that you should consider trying to build up based on what your account looks like. So hopefully you'll see this before Starfire's bleed is over with so that you can pull Starfire a few more times, because I definitely think that will help you with that Bat family team that you're trying to put together. I would say probably the biggest hole in this account right now would be long-term trying to figure out what your third team is going to be for things like 3v3 strategic challenge. And obviously you do have Martian Manhunter at 2 purple stars, so that's going to be a good start to an Outsiders counterattack team. It looks like you're trying to work on your Starfire. As I mentioned, you should definitely try to get her a little bit higher. And Arsenal's not really worth building right now, but we can only hope that we're going to get a couple of good Outsiders team members that you can add to that squad, and that could potentially be your third team that you can push towards. Probably you're able to use some of these solid legendary champions as you're trying to kind of build the rest of your roster, but definitely focus in on that Superman family team and the Bat family team, and specifically try to get your Nightwing as high as you can whenever his rerun comes back around, and then make sure that you focus on that Supergirl as well to try to get her up and running the next time she comes around too. Next up, we've got Helakarite, and this person has a free-to-play roster as well. Looks like they've got a very heavy focus on Superman family and Justice League Dark. A couple of things that I notice here: absence of Nightwing, so they're definitely not trying to build any sort of a Batman comp. I believe they have a Joker that's only at 0 stars, so definitely not trying to do any sort of Arkham's Most Wanted lineup. And they've smartly not tried to invest too much into the Legion of Doom setup because they are a free-to-play player, and I think smart free-to-play players know that Legion of Doom is just not accessible to them right now. I do like seeing the three blue star Sinestro, because you're going to be able to use that Sinestro really well with a Justice League Dark lineup. And one fun thing that I've actually been doing with Justice League Dark recently, I see you got a Martian Manhunter here who is at 5 blue, is putting him into Justice League Dark and then playing against other JLD teams in 3v3, and you're able to shut down their Constantine and end up pulling out the win yourself. So kind of a fun way to use that. I definitely think you should lean into your Justice League Dark and try to hit those champions, particularly Constantine, on a rerun, but that team seems to be in pretty good shape. And you're looking at your Superman, 3 purple stars is really good for him for a free-to-play player. I love that you're investing in your Flash. He's an incredible champion, not just for Superman, but really any of your win conditions. He's able to cycle ultimates, and he's able to cycle Krypto's ultimate even to try to get the Krypton energy up really high. So really like seeing that you have Flash invested here. You'll definitely be able to get a lot of use out of multiple different Justice League lineups for your roster. I did notice that I'm not seeing a Supergirl in the roster. Probably a smart decision for a free-to-play player, actually, because she does take an incredible amount of investment. You probably spent a lot of those anvils trying to get Superman whenever he did his rerun, which prevented you from going after Supergirl. And that's fine. I do like that you got Superboy anyway, because as I mentioned with one of the other builds, he is going to be really good for your roster, regardless of whether you have Supergirl up and running, just because he's able to provide a lot of attack stat to your win conditions on the team. So kudos to you on that one. Really smart. I know that Starfire is available to you in the bleed right now, but you've got Raven for your Justice League Dark team, and you've got Krypto for your Superman family team, and you also have Mira that you have access to. So you already kind of have 3 healers for your team. You don't necessarily have to go after Starfire, and it could make sense for your account to maybe save some ambles up and try to go after some of these champions that you already have on a rerun, which is going to bolster your account a little bit further. If you're going to go after Starfire, you really do need to try to get multiple copies of her. So just think about that and consider whether it will be worth it to spend ambles on her based on the way you have your account built here. I probably would not do that, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't maybe look at getting her unique legacy piece for your account if you're looking for a next legacy piece to build. Unfortunately, we only have time for one more roster review. For anyone who posted their rosters for me to review that did not make the video, I'm going to do my best to provide a response in the Discord server. It might take me a little bit of time to provide that response to you, but I'm going to try to get around to those just because I want to make sure that I help as many people as possible. It's going to be difficult probably to do this going forward because I'm going to have a lot more people requesting them. But for this first pass, I'm going to try to answer everyone who submitted a roster. This roster belongs to Emily, and they are on server 369. This is a completely free-to-play player. I believe they said that they're on the bleeds for Zatanna and Constantine right now, and I think they have about 1,300 anvils saved up, and that's actually quite impressive. I think this person hasn't even bought the construction queue, and typically I recommend that even free-to-play players consider doing that just so that they are able to push their account forward a little bit faster. Looking at the top of their account, I'm actually quite impressed with the fact that they were able to get a 1 yellow star Krypto. It sounds like they must have been incredibly efficient in the Krypto event back when the Superman family was being showcased, and they must be spending a lot of their mythic shard selectors on Krypto as well. So really impressive to see Krypto that high, and he's going to probably be providing a lot of benefit to this account being that high as well. I definitely think that Emily should be pushing Wonder Woman up to that 5 red star mark as quickly as possible to try to get her ascended to mythic. That's definitely going to help the account regardless of where she's being used. I assume probably some sort of a Justice League team. And obviously, with all of the Amazonian champions coming out, hopefully over the next few couple of months, I wonder whether it might be worth spending some of those anvils on the Amazonian team. I don't believe that Hippolyta has made it to server 369 yet, but definitely something to be thinking about for how to spend those anvils. I definitely think you should try to pick a team that you want to go after and go ahead and use those anvils when you get there. And there's several options that you would have in terms of reruns to try to do that. It doesn't sound like you're wanting to go after Zatanna and Constantine, but I definitely think that's obviously a really valid option for you. If you're going to do it, you want to spend most of those anvils on Constantine and see how high you can push him during the bleed right now. And then you would also have to pull for Zatanna a couple of times as well. I see you already have a 3 blue star Raven, so you're well on the way to having a pretty solid healer for that Justice League Dark team. If you go that route, your Dr. Fate does need a little bit of work at 4 white stars, but you could probably start trying to shift your Mythic Shard Selector spending over to Dr. Fate and try to get him up and running over the next couple of months for that. But really, even at 5 white stars, you could still build the Justice League Dark team and not feel bad about using him, because he's one of those champions that still, I think, is useful to non-spenders at lower stars, because his ultimate's still going to provide a pretty good shield. As far as legacy pieces, I like seeing the Superman cape. He really does require that cape to be at his best. And I see you've also bought the Superboy guitar, which is actually a really nice legacy piece to use. So you've got that on crypto for right now. Having looked through your roster for a little while, I definitely would heavily consider going Justice League Dark. You've got a pretty nice setup here with a lot of optionality for a couple of different Justice League teams, but you really need to kind of expand your roster out to be able to participate in things like 3v3 Strategic Challenge, as well as Umbral Rift and all of the league-based events, which are ship combat. You're definitely going to need to expand out your roster and have a few teams that have good tag synergy. And so, the next logical step is to go for a different tag synergy team. You don't really have the roster to go after Arkham's Most Wanted, and you seem to be very, very strategic in how you're spending your resources, but you also have quite a few resources saved up for someone who is free to play. So big decision for you to make here before you lose Zatanna and Constantine in the bleed, to decide whether you're going to go after a Justice League Dark team officially or try to save to push for something else down the road. Having that Superboy unique legacy piece already in your account, I do wonder whether you're considering going after Superman family when they show back up in the bleed. Not already having Superboy and Supergirl, is going to, that probably plays into it a little bit. But given the amount of anvils that you have saved up, I think you could easily push one specific bleed champion into the high purple, low yellow star range, and you could probably get a couple of champions into the purple star range if you do it right. So you got a lot of options. Let me know in the Discord server. I know you're fairly active there. So if you see this, let me know what your plans are, whether you're going to be spending those anvils. I'm very curious, and good luck. Well, that's going to do it for this roster review. It's definitely a longer format video, and I feel like I kind of just stumbled my way through that. So let me know in the comments below what I can do better on these roster reviews. If you're one of the people who got reviewed, let me know if I was able to address any of the things that you were wondering about, or if you still have lingering questions about how you want to build things. I'm definitely looking forward to this format for future videos on the channel. One of the reasons why I play this game at all is to help other people play it as well. It's really fun to look at rosters and think on a long time horizon how people can build a competitive roster without having to spend much money. Obviously, I spend a decent amount on the game, but I do a lot of that in terms of trying to test and figure out things now so that people, many servers down the road don't have to make the same mistakes that we're making in the beta servers. But like I said, really enjoyed this format. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if not, I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully.